InspectPoint is a software specifically created for the fire protection industry, optimizing the process and workflow for everything from inspection, testing, and maintenance to follow-up service. Everything from scheduling, NFPA or ULC compliant inspections, deficiency follow-ups, and work orders. Check them out today at inspectpoint.com/FSP for a free 1-month trial.
Like and subscribe.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. I have Drew Slocum from InspectPoint on again and the Fire Protection Podcast, competitor of mine. Drew, how's it going today?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on again. And it's been 6 months or so. I forgot.
It's probably been 6 months, May or April or something like that. We had you on. You were my first guest on the podcast, and now you've probably been my most reoccurring guest on the podcast as well.
Well, I love coming on here. We have good banter, and before you started recording, we were comparing fire alarm to sprinkler and
Sprinkler wins.
how you don't like fire alarm, and
it's no. Hold on. Now you can't just say that. It's not that I don't like fire alarm, because I think fire alarm has a place, but I will say that I like sprinkler better, because a fire alarm system tells people that there's a fire and a sprinkler system does something about it.
Okay.
That's what I, in my mind, I'll go back into the story now. When I was an apprentice and a little bit of a thick-skulled, sprinkler's better than everybody kind of mentality as a kid, I would always ingrain it into my head. I don't care about fire alarm. I don't care about fire alarm. I just care about sprinklers. Like, let's put the wet stuff on the hot stuff. Let's put the fires out. And then over the years of now expanding my fire protection knowledge and wanting to know more about fire protection, I just have a really, really hard time focusing on fire alarm, because I do really, 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 and I'm looking at the camera, I really want to learn about fire alarm, but I have a hell of a time staying focused on it, because my eyes just go back to teenage Chris as an apprentice, like just don't care about it. And that's my problem. That's not the industry's problem. That's just
sure.
That's why I do the Fire Sprinkler Podcast and not anything else, because I don't know enough about it.
Well, hey, there's an opportunity to expand out, and I feel like, contractors are handling a lot of different, I call them verticals or kind of sectors within fire protection. You break it down into fire or fire alarm, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Then you have fire sprinkler, and then fire suppression, which is more like the clean agent, kitchen suppression, anything with like a chemical, right? And then you have kind of extinguishers, that's its own thing.
Yep.
And then kind of like different life safety aspects like doors and dampers. But I talked to a contractor yesterday, and they're doing all that, plus they're doing safety showers, SCBAs, AEDs. They're in the building, they're doing everything.
Yeah.
So might as well grab. So you have to kind of be an expert. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to have people that, and definitely fitters or technicians, right? That know that as well.
And yeah, I'm glad you stopped yourself from saying you have to be an expert in everything. You individually, as a business owner, manager, fitter, etc., you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you do have to know. I've said it 1,000 times, is you have to know what you don't know, and you have to accept your limitations. And that's where education, additional training, things like that, apprentices out there, if there's any apprentices listening or watching or whatever you're doing, it's not, I got my ticket, I'm a fitter, I don't have to do anything else, or a journeyman sprinkler fitter, whatever you want to call yourself. Education never stops. I've been doing sprinkler now for like most of my life, and I still pick up the code book. I still stay current with the latest trends in the industry and the new technology and stuff like that, because it's always changing. You're evolving industry, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting, and I always, there's so many different, and then I didn't even mention security. Security is a whole different realm,
another
right?
ball game that a lot of people are getting into too. Yeah.
Security, and that's kind of like it's not really regulated. We're having to dive into it pretty quick, because a lot of our clients are in security because they're in the building, right? So learning about cameras and CCTV and just door access controls, and it's like, oh wow, this is I'm always looking to I did that when we started in Spec Point. We were kind of focused on sprinkler because it's a little more complicated with the inspection piece, and then obviously branched out into suppression and all that. But fire alarm, obviously, it's the brain of the system, right? Brain of the building as far as fire goes. Um, so that's super I don't want to say super complicated, but it's everything kind of talks to that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and then separate from that, it's kind of like the security end, which they can sometimes talk to each other that go up into the building controls. So, um, yeah, there's a lot to learn, and yeah, I guess the more a fitter technician knows, I think, or anybody like anybody in sales, the more power you have as an individual in your career, right?
And and, and as well as making sure that you're sharing that knowledge with you. You can be the smartest guy in the world, but that's not going to help you at all if you get hit by a truck tomorrow,
Oh yeah, I
right?
know. Yeah.
You have to share that knowledge. That old adage of the apprentices don't come into the valve room when you're trimming out a valve is, I like to think in our industry it's gone, but I know there are still situations where that happens. Don't worry about it. You're not going to understand it anyways.
Wait, that was a thing?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That used to be a thing. Like, hey, we're doing the fun stuff. We're doing the trimming and the valves, and you're a first year. You don't need to learn any of this yet. Get in
That's
there, get your
crazy.
hands dirty, and figure out how it works. Right. In
Wow.
my opinion now, and again, it has gotten a lot better. The industry has gotten a lot better with sharing its knowledge, and I like to think it's just because of the availability of the knowledge, social media,
Yeah.
anywhere on
Yep.
the internet, podcasts. If
Yep.
it's an awesome one like mine, or an like yours.
You should. I recorded my latest one. I don't know what's going to come out first, but it was really cool. I had a Peerless on to talk about Fire Connect. So it's like all the
Oh, that's
remote.
their new controller for their new
Yeah.
controllers.
Well, it connects to any controller. So um, it connects to essentially any controller.
Okay.
So it grabs the date, the flow, the pressure data, a bunch of other temperature data. So it's a lot of what's happening within that fire pump in the fire pump room. But it was really cool. But that's even another level past sprinkler and any system, right? You got to start knowing like almost like IT at that point if you're a fitter or a tech
Well, and again,
to troubleshoot it.
not even knowing how to do it, but knowing where to get the information from. And
Yes.
companies
Yep.
like Vitalik have gotten really good with, instead of getting a 47-page pamphlet on how to operate their valves, you get a QR code, and you can
Oh,
scan
nice.
the QR code, and it automatically links to the website where it shows you resetting instructions and troubleshooting instructions and stuff like that. And they're along with, I think, a lot of the manufacturers are starting to put QR codes on the valves now.
Yeah, I think Viking was the first but that was just a data sheet, right? It's a static data sheet.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh I like what Victalic's doing, with the video. I think you could even go further. I wish they were because embedding a QR code and what we found with InspectPoint, if you can embed specific information about the valve, year it was made,
Mm-hmm.
what model it is, what manufacturer, obviously, um, did I say year, serial number? Some of that data is very powerful to the inspection or service contractor because essentially you can click that and it can kind of be smart and populate a few things. Like extinguishers have it already. Some of the premium extinguisher manufacturers, you literally hit a QR code and we populate 10 pieces of information from one thing. So it kind of speeds up and optimizes that inspection. I wish that Sprinkler was doing it more than the data sheet's important, but I think the information about the actual what year
Yeah,
valve it is, because I feel like dry valves are changing every couple of years
it
of
seems
how they're
like they
made.
are. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
seems like a lot of the manufacturers now are starting to, I won't say all come out with a similar product, but the same types of the same types of add-ons to the systems are becoming kind of prevalent across the entire industry, which is good to see. Everybody's really jumped up their levels. Have you
yeah.
seen, speaking of like the internet and stuff like that, not internet technology. Now speaking of the internet, um, have you played on Vikings virtual, I call it the virtual valve room?
I've done it. I think I did it at a trade show, I believe. I've seen their augmented reality, which is really cool.
Yeah,
I think it's ahead of its time. I haven't done the Valve VR yet, and again, that's ahead of its time too.
that's really
Where, um, but I I wish it was more real world, right? I think it's good for training, but I think you have to be at their facility to do it, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was portable. I did it at their facility, but I don't know if it is available. Like I'm sure it'll be available portable
On
to.
an Oculus or something.
Yeah, it is on Oculus.
Okay.
So they did tell me that there was a link to where you can get it and download it on Oculus, and I was super pumped up to get home and find it because I'd have my kids trimming valves, resetting drive valves and stuff like that. But I couldn't find it, and I'm not very up to date with the whole VR type of setup.
Yeah.
Right, I
Yeah.
go on there every once in a while, and I I play whatever Beat Saber, swinging the wand,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
the kid's a maniac at it. Um, I basically just do it so that they feel good about themselves because I don't let my kids win, but that one I can't beat them.
Can't win.
I can't win. No. With games like
Yeah, that's fine. I think it is helpful. There's probably a lot of technology, and they dumped a bunch of money into it. Um,
yes.
I I I definitely ahead of its time, and I hope they're getting a return on that. It's just, you know, they got to go into old. Do they do older stuff, or is it just their newer stuff?
I think they started with the newer stuff as a kind of branding to get out there with
Yeah,
information out there to kind of help launch newer products. And I think they are working on going back, but it is because of the setup they're doing with the Oculus. There's a lot of work involved with what they're doing. I do know, and I'll talk to Joe before I actually put this in there, and I'll edit it out if I'm not, and it'll stop right now, and we'll go into the end of this.
yeah,
Joe's working on something as well with Joe Meyer,
yeah.
MeyerFire.com, MeyerFire University. Anybody who's listening and doesn't know who Joe is, you should. But he's working on something right now where it's not an Oculus type of VR, but it is through the website where you can, if I hit this valve, what happens? If I do this, what happens? If I do this, what happens? As a kind of test procedure for Meyer Fire University. So we have,
Interesting.
yeah, and like talking through the procedures with him, and can we make something do this? And then in an hour, he sends me a link to a website, and like, yeah, if you twist the riser manifold and you set it to test, you'll only get a little bit of water out of the 2-inch drain. But then if you put the 2-inch drain flow test on and open the valve, you get a ton of water out the drain. I'm like, holy dude, it's been 45 minutes since we came up with the idea. Why do you have this done already?
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Like I said, it's not going to be the VR, but it's still a really, really, really awesome concept that I'm super pumped to see.
I think we're implementing something at some point next year where you literally walk into a valve room, and there's going to, with inspect point, whatever systems, you'll know what systems are there, but there'll be a file there where you can do a 360 degree or 180, whatever you want,
Yeah,
view of that room. So you're not even there, right? That you'll have to grab that data file, but
sure.
essentially it's a 360 or 180 view of that room. So, say there's 5 deficiencies to get written up on this wet system, this dry system, or this compressor or whatever. So the office or even another technician can see that file, go into that valve room and see what it is, right?
Oh, so it's
Um,
not just a picture; it's actually like a
it's
3D.
not a picture, and they actually can be tagged with like data, like the compressor cuts in at whatever. So that could be tied back into inspect point as well. It's already grabbed an inspect point, but if you tie in it to like I guess it's essentially it is a photo, but it's more like 360 degrees.
Yeah,
So you
like
can actually,
interact.
essentially, you could walk the room.
Oh, that's really cool. Now, are
Yeah.
you going to be utilizing that more for the remote testing aspect of things as well? Like if you're doing a remote test and somebody has, I've never done a remote test before, but if you're doing a remote test, somebody kind of is the idea for the remote testing, somebody has like FaceTime on and they open this valve and you generally speaking know what the valve room looks like ahead of time.
Yeah. So I mean, remote testing, it's still I mean, the standards coming out in 23.
Right.
So then that will have to be adopted into the different NFPA. So it's all going to be up to the HJ whether they allow remote inspection, remote testing still. Um, that's still like, you know, who can test it, right? But remote inspection, it's more of a visual inspection. You're grabbing some of the analytic data and remote monitoring versus actually testing something. However, fire pump, I just had this podcast, so it is remote testing is allowed for a churn test, right?
Yep.
So you don't need anybody there, which is kind of wild. That's the 2023 edition. And I think it might go back one
I
too,
think
but
it did.
I was just looking at 23 at least
But
earlier.
now, my question with that, as anything, as a customer service provider in the
Hmm.
industry, why I get the cost of having somebody present in a valve room can be expensive,
Hmm.
but do you not want somebody in that if you have the remote testing for say a diesel fire pump?
Hmm.
The first thing I do when I start a fire pump is to make sure the cooling water is running. I'm either starting it on I'm sure you can remotely start it on battery one or battery two. So you're cycling the batteries, but do you
Right.
not want to make sure things like the cooling water is running, the pressure relief valve, if there's one, if it's needed, is operating and running properly? Nothing that's not supposed to happen is happening with this.
Thing is, you know that remotely.
So it gives you all that information. How will
That
it tell
gives you
you physically that the cooling water is running?
I don't know how I got to see what they're not grabbing everything.
Yeah.
So for a weekly or monthly, they're grabbing like 75% of what's needed per NFPA 25. So there's still going to be have to be somebody there,
Yeah.
but a lot of it they have and it's ready. They even have it for the annual flow test. If you have the flow meter already, if it's wired into the module.
Really?
Now, yeah, they have that. So, but you still need eyes there, right? At
Yeah.
this point. But what happens between now and the next annual? You can essentially run that every day if you wanted to,
Yep.
right? And any like anything critical that's below like a certain mark can automate a service ticket to send somebody out there.
So
So
it
you're never going to get rid of
like
somebody
that.
being there, but a
Right.
lot of the data is going to be automated for it.
Oh, okay. So it's just relaying the information. Nobody has to write it down pen and paper, which is obviously what you're
Right.
trying to get away from.
Yeah. Now in 2023, NFPA 25, nobody needs to be there. Now, qualified personnel need to be there within 4 hours if there's an abnormal condition
Oh, that's going to
in
be
2023.
the catch-all? Is
Yep.
that you don't have to be okay?
Yep.
Now, I would also probably it's also up to the HJ to allow this as well.
Uh, yes, but this is an NFPA 25, so it's in 25. So as soon as, you adopt 2023, then I don't know, there's probably some sort of uh provision in 20. I don't have 20 in front of me, but
Yeah, they'll have to be, and I'm sure like your local building code or building department or fire department will tell you which version of NFPA 25 they want you to follow, anyways.
I think the initial, it may have been 20 that it was a lot less time. It was like 5 or 10, 15 minutes.
Somebody
Now
has
it's
to go
4
on
hour,
site.
but now it's 4 hours.
Holy cow!
Yeah. But that's, the annual flow test, you're still going to need somebody there for now. But a lot of the data is already automated. So essentially the tech's going to roll in knowing everything, a lot of it ahead of time. So
Right.
it's definitely optimized that whole process.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
it monitors things like suction pressure on the fire pump.
Suction pressure, obviously you can get the flow from a flow meter, an
Flow meter,
ultrasonic
yeah.
flow
Will it
meter.
shut down the fire pump if the suction drops below a certain?
I don't think they automate anything to do anything to the pump. It's more just grabbing data out of it.
Oh, that's where you got to have a guy on site, right? If that suction pressure
Yes.
starts dropping below 20, I don't go below 20. Some people will go to 15, but as soon as you get to below 20 psi, you're not opening any more valves or pushing any more water. That's it.
Right. So I think this is the first step, right? And it's more grabbing data. and that's that remote monitoring. Essentially, it is remote testing, so because you can turn the pump on.
Mhm.
But again, we're going to be doing a webinar on it in December. So plug for anybody who wants to learn about Fire Connect, and I'm,
Maybe I'll be on
yeah,
asking the hard questions.
yeah,
So what else is I mean, we came on to talk about the new stuff that's available from Inspect Point, and then we've gone off the deep end.
yeah. I know,
What
right?
the first time I had you on the podcast, we were talking about Inspect Point, and I think it was probably within the first 6 months of launching Inspect Point. I started the podcast, and Inspect Point was that you guys were either 2017 or 18.
The pot. No, no, we've been in biz. I think we're
Inspect
eight.
Point.
Yeah, Inspect Point's 8 years in January,
Oh shit! Sorry, excuse
maybe.
me. Uh,
You bet you're gonna have to, yeah, don't edit that out. You just
all
gotta
right, well,
click the little button. This is not okay for kids.
yeah, that's right. When I go to YouTube, yeah, my kids don't listen anyways. The okay, I didn't realize it was that old. I thought we started around the same time, but obviously not. So even in the past 4 years, the product has changed immensely. What are some of the highlights from probably back in May when we talked that you guys have added?
Um, so some big things lately. Let's see. We're obviously inspection's been day one,
Yeah.
and we thought we were going to be done inspection with the inspection modules within a year, right? Well, we're on year 8, whatever, 7, what 8, and we're still doing it. Code changes. We're bringing in security. We have this whole fire alarm component for Canada, ULC, which is it's super complicated. It's very kind of more detailed than NFPA 72 for like the code writing and the
Mhm.
report writing. So that's been a big initiative over the last year and a half. Um, is kind of getting very niche on the different verticals. So fire extinguishers got its own vertical, fire alarm got its own vertical, fire sprinklers had its own vertical for a while. Obviously improving little tweaks to those. But all the compliance and inspection that continues to grow, but we're really focusing a lot on the service and dispatch where it's more of a field service, a full field service management. So there's 100 different service platforms out there that do a variety of different industries, HVAC, pest control, whatever, right? Well, there's software like ours now that is super niche to a specific industry, and then even inside that, the fire alarm techs look different than the sprinkler fitters, right? And still, they still do, even though there is some crossover. So making it very easy for that fitter or tech to perform their job. The focus is on them. And obviously, right behind that is the back office reviewing those reports and getting quotes out. But putting the power in their hand, almost have that tech or fitter be that salesperson,
Right.
depending on how you want your business flow to go. Um, we've added a lot of those features for the tech to write up proposals right in the field. So I think the younger generations are coming out in the field, right? They're more, they're a lot used to, they're more used to the technology, right? Um, so put that in their hands and kind of optimize the company. So it's a lot of, I know I said a lot of stuff there, but really focusing on the like the kind of full flow, the one workflow. I say one workflow to rule them all, right? We got scheduling all the way to collecting payment from your customer.
Oh, you can
Um,
do that through the app as well now.
yeah, so that got launched, I believe, last month. So you can take credit card, ACH from the field or in the back end. So extinguisher restaurants easy. You're collecting payment in the field a lot because it's a cash business, or it's a, you're in and you're out of there. It's lower priced inspections and service. For fire alarm and sprinkler, those are more contracts, or they're bigger fixes a lot of times.
Yep.
But if you have a bank account or a credit card on file, anything $500 and less, just fix it while you're at the inspection.
Yeah.
Just don't send a quote, put that into your contract, right? but then you can do all the payment processing right there, and it's all in kind of one workflow. So yeah, that's been the last month or so, which is which is interesting to see what the I feel the industries that they're still lagging of how you think about that, right? And a lot of industries, HVAC, my pest control guy called me yesterday, and I recommended a pest control software for him,
Oh yeah.
right? It takes him 2 months to invoice me. Why isn't he not collecting payment the day he does the service?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Who are you again?
yeah,
That's the worst. That's the worst thing in the world as a customer service provider is which invoice is this for? Oh yeah, we sent it a week ago. We were there 2 months ago.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, our focus is fire protection industry, right? And we have that one workflow to kind of uh, for a company, but if you want to use your own accounting platform, if you want to use your own dispatching or ERP platform, we connect to any of those. So even our competitors, we actually connect with them
Oh really?
because yeah. Some of my biggest competitor, we have an integration with them. Um, so yeah,
The benefits.
it's that competitor thing.
Yeah, that's the competitor. I don't know if a lot of other industries use that term.
No, I haven't heard it until you brought it up,
Uh,
actually.
it's only because like I mean other software companies I can't imagine them being super pumped about like yeah absolutely you could 100% can change my reports into yours.
Yeah.
Make it really easy to switch customers. Are you finding a lot of the techs using iPads or the phones more?
Ah, good question. I talked to somebody yesterday. They're using phones. I still like the iPad for fire alarm inspections
Yeah.
and fire sprinkler inspections because they're a little bit more detailed and they're larger. Um, but for any service, emergency service, scheduled service, or extinguisher
Yep.
service, it's all being done on the phone. I know, if I were in the field day in, day out, I'd probably get a large phone and
Yeah.
then just use that, honestly. Um, I feel like, and if you need a stylus, if it's, because we adapted on the phone pretty well.
Yep.
But you're in the field, sometimes it's tough to zoom in if you have a big inspection.
And it's also like, I mean, to have a guy staring at his phone when he's walking around your building, that's you still get into that. I mean, it's a different world now where it's
Right.
a guy looking at his phone is not just being lazy. Now he's either doing research or looking up
Yeah.
a data sheet or looking up the previous inspection report. So that kind of connotation is gone.
Yeah.
But it's still, if I see one of my guys, if I show up on site and he's staring at his phone, chances are he's not working. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of mentality you got to get over, which I think is starting to get there, but I don't think it's there yet for some of the older guys in the industry.
Yeah. I think there's so much data that, like, you're not even looking at an old inspection report now. You're actually looking, I mean, we pre-populate a lot of the data where it'll automatically flag you if you have a degradation in water supply from last time, right?
Right.
Or if your fire pumps below the degradation last time. And so we're sending some alerts to the technician. So it's you're not having to file through a lot of that. But no, I get you. If uh, you're on some of the Facebook uh,
Yeah.
fitter and technician groups. Those are fun, right?
There's a lot of interesting things that is being done with the best. How do you say this politically? There's a lot of shit work out there that people think is good. That's as political as I can get.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a lot of work in there that people think take a step back and say, that's it. Great job. My grandfather used to always tell me, write your name and phone number on every piece of pipe you put in. If somebody has a problem with it, they can call you and get a hold of it. Obviously, he's not saying to write your name and phone number, but don't do work that somebody can't get a hold of you and say
right.
is good or bad down the road. If you're welcome to being criticized, that's the best, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I I'm on a lot of those groups to get criticism of our platform, right?
Yeah.
Um, Also get criticism of other platforms. Um, but I want the feedback to make everything better.
Right. Awesome. What else is new with Drew, and what else is new with Inspect Point, and what else is new with the fire protection podcast?
The podcast, we're doing one a month. You got some more coming out. I had the Freeze Master on last month,
Sean.
and
Yep.
yeah, Sean, and then Fire Connect. I'll probably have Compliance Engine on at some point as well.
Yep.
That's the third party compliance solutions. We have some exciting news there coming down the line toward the end of the year. Um, yeah, let's see, Inspect Point. Yeah, I mean, we really pushed hard earlier this year, and we're probably going to continue it with in the Canadian market with, so we have this whole, I joined CFAA a while ago, the Canadian Fire Alarm Association. Um, been members maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and so that qualifies Inspect Point as a member now, even though we're not a Canadian company. We're close enough. We're about 2 hours away.
Yep.
But anyway, so we've been really pushing hard there with some of our clients, and they like, obviously it's NFPA 25 for sprinkler, but for fire alarm and even on the extinguisher side, it's ULC. So it's UL like for Canada. And they have ULC 536 and 537 for fire alarm. We're going to be doing 561 for security systems here soon. We're going to be doing CO and smoke detector monitoring, which is another kind of sector, right? So we're really focusing on jurisdictions, not only in Canada, but even in the US. California's got its own solution that we're up to date, or we're about to have some changes there. So we're trying to really jurisdictionalize our platform
Right.
for the workflows in that area. Um,
How many different people? Like, it's not just a 4 or 5 man operation at Inspect Point anymore.
oh yeah, it's not the four of us anymore. I think we were about 20,
Wow.
20 or so at the beginning of the year. We're almost to 40. So, um, yeah, we're almost 40 employees, and a lot of it's on the engineering and software side. And the guys actually in my state of Connecticut, they're Lee Rogers is heading that up, and then we have a lot of the customer success side up in upstate New York that Jen Doyle and her team does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we've expanded on the sales team a little bit to get our messaging out there, and you'll see some more fun marketing come with us here soon, and
Awesome.
leaning into the podcast as well.
What right now, as far as people using the product, do you have that number? How many do you have, like a total number of inspections done versus?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've caught up. Our competitor, I think Building Reports puts out like 10 to 12 million. I mean, we're almost caught up to them at this point, and
Wow.
I mean, again, they're 3 times as old as us. But again, we're working on a different kind of methodology than them.
Right.
And they put a good basis out there. But I think we're approaching 10 million inspections. Deficiencies, I think it's probably 2 to 3 million
Wow.
at this point, and we have, I don't know, I think almost 3 to 4 thousand technicians on the platform. I
Wow.
forgot. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
kind of crazy. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it's the funny part. There's a looming recession, right? Um, throughout the globe.
Yeah.
So install, and I think there's a lot of projects that have been delayed,
Yes.
and that they'll continue to get worked on. But I think what's going to happen is money's tight, money's not cheap anymore. So I think some of that's going to shrink, and a lot of pipeline has shrunk from the install side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to happen kind of what happened when 2008, 2009,
Right.
where service and inspection is not going anywhere,
Never.
right?
Nope.
Compliance is only growing.
Yep.
So that, there's going to be another swing back toward this recurring revenue and inspection and testing.
And
Um,
probably almost to a higher standpoint, I would think, because if it gets to the point where buildings are sitting empty again, fire department jobs are not going away.
No.
Fire prevention officers, inspectors, things like that are still going to be going around and making sure that these buildings are being maintained.
Yep.
And in doing so, deficiencies are going to be deficiencies and fire orders are going to be issued. So the
Oh yeah.
your service and inspections, while new construction might slow down a little bit, your service and inspections is going to continue to grow. The way I'm
Well, yeah, and the compliance platforms like Bricers and Compliance Engine out there, where you know it's there's a step to get that data over into those systems,
Mhm.
and we're working on something really fun with that to really automate that. But that's going to essentially it pops up to a fire official saying, "Hey, I've got four critical deficiencies on these inspections that happened yesterday. What's happening to them?" They can reach out to the building. They obviously can, there's automated letters and everything that's sent out to those buildings. So that service is just going to keep, that's going to keep growing. And they haven't even, you know, HJs are signing up for them left and right. And I think Toronto may be looking at something as well.
Oh yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, I think they're creating something themselves, but
Really?
yeah, it's just that they have lack of, there's lack of, they don't have as many inspectors, right? So,
See,
and a lot of
Toronto,
this can be automated anyway,
Toronto's
right?
a
Why?
little bit different now. So Toronto had an issue there 5, 6 years ago. You
Yep,
can Google a report called "Raising the Alarm,"
yep,
and then they brought in this guy Ryan Duggan. I won't say this.
yep.
He's been an absolute
Yeah, Ryan's great.
yeah. He's been absolutely killing as far as making sure that the city of Toronto, from a standard standpoint, is getting up to code to the point where it's probably safe to say that the city of Toronto was probably in the top probably the top 15 sprinkler contractors in Ontario as far as inspectors and like employed inspectors with them. The city of Toronto probably has the top 15 contractors in Ontario.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
I don't know that may not be like a statistic, but I bet you it's not far off.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so again, AHJ compliance is just increasing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's a big runway for inspection service companies. So, and I think a lot of the market's still a little antiquated. Majority of it is. I don't say majority at this point, but there's still, um, left and right we see people on pen and paper and
Right.
um, uh, Excel.
Yeah.
The
That's
Excel
Excel
was
probably
great in 1998. You know,
they're probably still your biggest competitor though.
they are, especially on the fire alarm side, because fire alarms still have to be connected via, of uh, kind of, they still have to be connected via wire,
Right.
right, to get a lot of the data out of them. They're starting to be more connected, and you can get that via, the internet now. But so to get all those points out, you still have to connect via. So to dump it in Excel is, but with our platform, it's essentially glorified Excel with a lot of bells and whistles per NFPA 72 and ULC, and um, we've got some fun. I think we're going to announce it in November. We have this quick inspect. So essentially, you can quick inspect. Um, Say you have 10 strobes going off, right?
Yep.
You know all 10 strobes are going off. Why do you have to click into each one? Well,
Yeah.
let's just pass them all,
So
right?
can you batch them to where like I
Yep,
walk into this room and then I see, it's a conference center or something like that, and I
yep,
can see all 20 of them. You just batch
yep,
conference room A batched, conference room
yep.
batched.
These 10, boom, they're good. Because majority of the time, and any fire protection system or inspection, right? Majority of the time, it's going to be in good working order. It's those other ones you have deficiencies but do you have to? So we're trying to optimize it for the tech so they're not clicking, and that's the feedback we got from the field. So
Yeah.
essentially everything that we do is feedback that we keep asking our users and our customers, what do you need? What's going to make your lives easier, um, to make obviously better compliance, but and make you more money.
Make the
So
jobs easier for the guys in the field
Yes.
which makes you more money, makes the guys happier, and get you able to do more inspections.
Yep. Yep. So techs really like us. I mean, we do a lot of classes. We did one over the weekend with the Road Local 669 in upstate New York. We've done them for AFSA before. So we really like focusing on the techs and the fitters. I we get in trouble a lot of times, and I tell the team, the industry technicians and fitters, the sprinkler industry likes being called fitters, right? Where some of the other trades, they're like technicians, right? So it's like they're the same, but they're different, right?
Technician. Technicians it just sounds a little soft.
I know, I know, I know.
Bitter. I get it. Awesome. Drew, thanks for coming on again, talking about everything in Spec Point and solving a lot of the world's problems as we usually do, going off on tangents. Anything?
Yeah, yeah.
before we
If
wrap
if
up?
if anybody is interested in obviously in specpoint.com, if you refer this podcast to, I think we got a couple free months, and if you sign up by the end of the year too.
Awesome.
So, I don't know what you want to reference, just Fire Sprinkler Podcast or whatever, and then
Sure. Yeah.
I'll let them know that they came our way via you, Chris.
Sounds good. Thanks, Drew. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll talk
Good
soon.
chat. All right, see ya.
This episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is brought to you by the Laying It Down for Camp Bucko fundraiser being put on by the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. With local partners Wallace Kent Sprinkler, Troy Life and Fire Safety, Greater Toronto Fire Protection, Lamstar, and Joseph Hullage, with major provider of the fire hoses being brought to you by the Toronto Community Housing, we are well over the 63 kilometers required to break the world record. We're putting off the world record attempt until spring to allow for more donations to come in. www.firesprinklerpodcast.com for more information on how you can donate. Camp Bucko is the burn camp for kids of Ontario. It's open to burn survivors between the ages of 7 and 17. The camp has grown to over 70 children attending the week-long camp in August. There's no fee to attend Camp Bucko, and we'd like to keep it that way. Hoses are $20 a length to sponsor right now. All proceeds going to Camp Bucko. Thanks for your support.